Hello everyone, welcome back to Easy Computer Learning. In our last video, we learned about input and output devices. Today we are going to learn about one of the most important parts inside your computer, the motherboard. What is a motherboard? What does it do? And what are the parts on it? Let's learn everything in a very simple and easy way. What is a motherboard? A motherboard is the main circuit board inside your computer. It is a large, flat board with lots of electronic components, slots, and connectors on it. Every single part of your computer, CPU, RAM, hard disk, SSD, graphics card, everything is connected to the motherboard. Simple example, think of the motherboard like the foundation of a building. Just like every floor and wall of a building is built on the foundation, every part of your computer is connected to and built on the motherboard. Without the foundation, the building cannot stand. Without the motherboard, the computer cannot work. What does a motherboard do? The motherboard has one main job. It connects all the parts of the computer together and allows them to communicate with each other. When your CPU needs data from RAM, the motherboard provides the path for that data to travel. When your hard disk needs to send a file to the CPU, the motherboard makes that connection possible. Without the motherboard, all the parts like CPU, RAM, and hard disk would just be separate pieces with no way to work together. The motherboard is what brings them all together into one working computer. Important parts of a motherboard. CPU socket. The CPU socket is the slot on the motherboard where the CPU is installed. Every motherboard has one CPU socket, and it is designed for a specific type of CPU. For example, some motherboards support Intel CPUs and some support AMD CPUs. You cannot put an Intel CPU in an AMD socket, they are different shapes and sizes. Simple example CPU socket is like a specific lock, and the CPU is the key. Only the right key fits into the right lock. RAM slots. RAM slots are the long, thin slots on the motherboard where your RAM sticks are inserted. Most motherboards have 2 to 4 RAM slots. The more RAM slots available, the more RAM you can add to your computer. Simple example, RAM slots are like extra seats in a classroom. The more seats available, the more students can sit. More RAM slots mean more RAM can be added. Storage connectors. The motherboard has connectors for connecting your hard disk and SSD. There are 2 types. SATA connectors are used for connecting hard disks and SATA SSDs. 2 slots are used for connecting faster NVMe SSDs. These connectors allow your storage devices to communicate with the rest of the computer. PCIe slots. PCIe slots are used to connect extra cards to your motherboard. The most common use is for connecting a graphics card. You can also connect other cards like sound cards and network cards through these slots. Simple example, PCIe slots are like extra USB ports, but for internal components. They allow you to add extra power and features to your computer. BIOS chip. Every motherboard has a small chip called the BIOS chip. BIOS stands for Basic Input-Output System. This chip contains the basic instructions that start your computer when you press the power button. Before Windows loads, the BIOS chip wakes up all the hardware and makes sure everything is working properly. Simple example, BIOS is like the alarm clock of your computer. When you press the power button, BIOS wakes up first and then wakes up everything else, including Windows. CMOS battery. On every motherboard, there is a small round silver battery called the CMOS battery. This tiny battery keeps the date and time of your computer correct, even when the computer is turned off and unplugged. It also saves your BIOS settings. Simple example, CMOS battery is like the battery in a wall clock. Even when there is no electricity, the clock keeps ticking. Similarly, even when your computer is off, the CMOS battery keeps the time running. Power connector. The motherboard has a large power connector where the cable from the power supply unit is plugged in. This is how the motherboard receives electricity and then distributes power to all the other components connected to it. USB, and other ports. The motherboard also controls all the ports you see on the back and front of your computer, like USB ports, HDMI port, audio ports, and Ethernet port. These ports are either directly on the motherboard or connected to it through cables. Types of motherboards. Motherboards come in different sizes. These sizes are called form factors. ATX is the standard full-size motherboard used in most desktop computers. It is the largest size and has the most slots and connectors available. Micro ATX is a smaller version of ATX. It has fewer slots but fits in smaller computer cases, good for budget builds. Mini ITX is the smallest type of motherboard. It is used in very small and compact computers. It has very few slots, but is perfect for small form factor builds. Simple example ATX is like a large table with lots of space. Micro ATX is a medium table. Mini ITX is a small coffee table. All are tables, but different sizes with different amounts of space. How to choose a motherboard? When choosing a motherboard, there are three main things to check. First, check which CPU it supports, Intel or AMD. Second, check how many RAM slots it has and what type of RAM it supports, DDR4 or DDR5. Third, check how many storage connectors it has, SATA and M, 2 slots. Always match your motherboard with your CPU first. That is the most important step. Then everything else follows. Interesting facts about motherboard. The first motherboard was made by IBM in 1981 for their first personal computer. At that time, it was called a planar board. The name motherboard comes from the idea that it is the main or motherboard to which all other smaller boards and components are connected. Some people also call it a mainboard or system board. So now you know what a motherboard is, what it does, and what all the important parts on it are. Remember, the motherboard is the foundation of your computer that connects everything together. Without it, nothing works. In our next video, we will learn about the operating system, what is Windows, Mac, and Linux. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. See you in the next video.